Hello, my name is Marcia Fulton, and I'm the co-director of the Extreme History Project. I'm not a filmmaker. I'm a historian and an anthropologist and an archaeologist, and for several years I've been studying along with my partner and colleague, Crystal Alegria, the history of this place. This is the site of Fort Parker, the first Crow Indian Agency. Fort Parker was built in 1869 by the Treaty of Laramie, in which the Crows gave up 20 million acres of their land in order to receive annual goods of food and clothing and other items, which were distributed here at the site of Fort Parker. Fort Parker was not a military fort. It was merely a place of distribution for these annual goods. And it also marked the edge of the boundary of the Crow Reservation at that time. The story of Fort Parker is filled with many important and interesting characters and has a very rich story to tell. Folks like Fellows Pease, one of the first Crow Indian agents, the first civilian agent, who was beloved by the Crow, was a trader for the Crows, and he lived out here and oversaw many of these distributions. The Crow chief sits in the middle of the land, was an important figure here. He gave an eloquent speech at a treaty negotiation in 1874 on this site, speaking of the plight of the Crows and the difficulties they were having in receiving their annual goods that were promised them but were not showing up on time. The young schoolmistresses, Pluma and Mary Noteware, who came out from the east to care for Crow children in the school here while their families were hunting and on their regular rounds. The young Crow girl, Pretty Shield, who tells stories of this time period, though not of the time here, because it was a time of difficulty, a time of challenge for them. But she recounts in her own memoirs many wonderful stories of this time period when she was a young girl here on the plains living with the Crows. The scout Thomas LaForge lived here with his Crow Indian wife Cherry, and he recounts a wonderful story of their courtship and marriage here at the site of Fort Parker. Plenty Coups was a young warrior here. The important Crow chief would have learned many things during this time that would be part of who he became as a significant chief and the last recognized chief of the Crows. The story of Fort Parker is a story of shared history, a place where two cultures came together to try to deal with the challenges of this landscape and the challenges that their two different ideas about how life was brought as they came together here on this landscape. This is a story that's not very well known, and it's a story that's not often told, as most stories of this period aren't told. And yet, it's a time period and a story that has great potential for doing good. The legacy of this period on reservations around the country have found itself manifested in things like teen suicide and alcoholism, drug addiction, poverty. These are symptoms of the loss of identity that places like this created. The Native Americans in this country have been dealing with this historical trauma for 7 generations, and yet this dialogue has not begun, and it's a dialogue that's important. We believe that a story like this has great potential to bring awareness and understanding of this time period and this difficult history to light, to begin the opportunity for dialogue, and to start possibly healing from this time period. We have been working on researching the history of this place, and we have been working on a documentary to tell this story. We've recently received a grant to do oral histories on the Crow Reservation around this place to tell this story that we believe has enormous potential for healing and for good. It's a story that's important to this country, to this nation, and it's important to the world to know what happened here, to learn what this story was, to learn what its legacy is. We hope that you see the potential and importance of the story as much as we do, and will grant us the opportunity to make this story happen. Thank you.